This is The Big Middle. Conversations about living healthier for longer, expecting more from the extra years we're getting in the middle. I'm Susan Flory. We know the global population is rapidly aging. We know longevity scientists are busy developing restorative treatments as they redefine aging as a disease. It's that medical model of steady decline that gallops to mind when we think of design for older people. It's all panic alarms and stairlifts and mobility scooters. Designers shoot right past the big middle years, the 40s through the 70s, to dependency and frailty before death. The UK's shiny new Design Age Institute is tasked with thinking beyond the design cliches and the stigma of growing older. Colum Lowe is its director. Georgie Lee is responsible for building community. Hello, Colum. Hello, Georgie.
Hiya.
Hello.
I'm so glad you're joining us because this is such a big, important topic. Now, I describe the Design Age Institute as shiny and new because your arrival on the scene a year ago was, I'm betting, dwarfed somewhat by the COVID pandemic. But you had a coming out party of sorts a couple of weeks back. Tell us the how and why story column of the Institute.
Its history is quite long. About 30 years ago, this year is really the anniversary of the initiative that was first called Design Age. And at some iterations, it was called Designing for Your Future Self. But it started 30 years ago at the Royal College of Art, and it kind of morphed into the Helen Hamlin Centre for Design. And then a year and a bit ago, we won a grant of Research England to set up a dedicated institute looking at design and healthy aging. And we have a three-year remit.
Okay, so this is just its latest incarnation, which is roughly a year old.
Yes. Although this time it is not, it is sponsored by Research England money. And we have a very specific set of deliverables to achieve in a kind of 3-year period.
Okay, well then let's hit those 2 points then. Funding, any other agencies involved, any other government backing or
no.
Corporate funding?
Not at this stage. Yes, we look to bring in sponsorship and clients, and that's part of what we'll be doing is working with private sector and public sector organisations to look at how design can have an impact in this area. But the Design Age Institute is set up in partnership with 4 others. The Oxford Institute of Population Aging at Oxford University, the National Innovation Centre for Aging at Newcastle University, the Design Museum, and the International Longevity Centre. And then us at the Royal College of Art. We are the 5 partners of the Design Age Institute.
Oh, that's a powerhouse combination, isn't it? So what about these deliverables?
Yes, so we have a research remit, obviously through Oxford and our own research team to look at the marketplace and why there is market failure in this area, why there seems to be an obsession about younger audiences. And then it's, as you say, it skips straight to disability with almost nothing in the middle. Why is that occurring? We also have a remit to work with products or services to market. So this isn't demonstration. This is about actually getting things on market that'll make a difference. And then we also have a remit to highlight and showcase great British design talent in aging and inclusive design.
Well, there's a lot to pick through with that. But first, Colum, if you could just sketch out your background, how did you come to be its fearless leader?
Well, fearless, we'll see. But
You are.
Thank you. 29 years ago, as a young product designer, I entered the Design Age Product Design Challenge at the Royal College of Art and was one of the winners. So I've been this has been on my radar for 29 years. I have worked with the Helen Hamlin Centre at the Royal College of Art for about 15, 16 years. And for the last 15 years of my career, I've been specialising in design for social good, working with organisations like the NHS, local authorities, Ministry of Justice, dementia and autism charities using design to improve people's lives. I've been on their radar and they've been on my radar for quite a long time.
Okay, well, I will have to not forget to ask you about what product you designed all those years ago. But let's sally forth. Now, I have long thought in this space that passions and interests unite people of all ages. People in their 40s through their 70s are much more diverse than teenagers. So what do you mean? What does Colum mean, Georgie? And I know that you're on the same page, you're in sync with this, by age-inclusive design.
That's for me, is it? Okay.
Yes, I'm lobbing you your first question.
Okay, so age inclusive. Well, I mean, for me, Colin might have, he might have a different view of it. Is that it's not pigeonholing people by chronological age. Basically, whoever you are, whatever your age, we're identifying a product or a service which can work for as many people as possible. And I think one of the things which got me really excited about the Design Age Institute, and also particularly Colum's view, is about not designing just for the medical or the negative. It's about designing for joy and delight and for desire. This is all about empowering people. And I think for too long, we've been dividing people into young and old and looking at them as they are completely different kind of species. But actually, if you design well, if you design for the extremes, you design better for everyone. So it's almost like it's like even using the stereotypes around aging and actually using those to design better products. But actually, the reality is that will benefit people across the life course.
Okay. And Georgie was alluding to the fact that you might have a different idea. Do you, Colum?
No, not at all. Yeah. But what I do have is, we like to use examples to illustrate what we're talking about. And as a designer, I'm going to swear and use Apple as an example. So I'll have to put a pound in the designer swear box for using Apple as an example. But the iPhone is one of those, or the tablet are fantastic examples of age-inclusive design. Anybody from 2 to 82 can use them, and everybody in the middle finds them better than what was there before. So it's this, I think, it's not designed on this is a product for a 27-year-old executive. This is a product that is just easier to use by everybody. And those people at the extremes who may have never used a computer before in their life or a smartphone, or might have some dexterity issues that can't use teeny wee buttons, can pick up an iPad and answer their emails, make a call, book a ticket. And so that is, one of those great examples of age inclusive design. And nobody says that's an old person's computer.
Exactly.
Because it's not.
But
and what's great is now too, they've got all these different sizes and formats, and you got mini pad and all this different things. So no matter what your needs are, how fat your fingers are, or how bad your eyesight is, it can all come to you in this one product.
Yeah. And there are many other products like that where you think about them, you think, well, anybody from a sort of 2-year-old child to an 82-year-old can actually use this product. And it enables them in a way that some other products and services disable them.
Well, what's another example? Or maybe we'll flip it the other way. Where are the design gaps that when it comes to catering to people across the life course? Let's go sector by sector by sector and hear from both of you on this.
Oh, well, I have to say, where to start?
Go ahead.
Okay. The reality is, Susan, is that there are a handful of really good examples of age-inclusive design. And these examples, designers in the space have been talking about for 10, 15 years, really. And what's so extraordinary about them? Things like the Ford Focus, right? I don't know if you know about the story about the Ford Focus, but I
actually don't. And for those who don't as well, do tell.
I love telling the story. I've told it about 1,000 times and I still never get bored of it. So the Ford Focus was an idea which came from the board at Ford, who said, our customers are getting older. Let's design a car for older people. So what they did is they got a really fantastic team of designers and ergonomic designers from all different disciplines. And they created a thing called the third age suit. So this was a suit which would mimic the extremes of aging. So arthritis, getting up and in and out of the car, glasses, which would sort of like really make seeing difficulty, these gloves, which would make driving hard. So based on all this, they created a car which was much easier to drive. So things like the dashboard had slightly larger information. The contrast was easier to see if your eyesight wasn't so good. And things like the door was made slightly larger to make it easier in and out of getting in. So anyway, I had this car and they had this audience. Interestingly, the marketing people said, okay, right, let's market it to older people. That's what it was designed for. No one bought it.
Because?
Then, because no one wants to be seen as older. You sell
because they had marketed completely as you're old. So they'd othered their target market.
Exactly. But then they did something, it's a brilliant insight. What they then did is, okay, we've got a car which is really easy to drive. Let's sell it as a car which is safe, easy to drive. And they did. And it became the world's best-selling car for almost a decade. And the extraordinary thing was, this is my favorite part of the story, that Autocar made it the world's best family car of all time. So you design for extremes of aging, you make a car which is just absolutely delicious and easy to drive. I mean, I think you could make it more aesthetically pleasing, but anyway, that's a different kind of question. But and it just defies logic why businesses can't design from an age inclusive perspective, because not only is it better for more people, economically they make more money. It's incredible, isn't it?
I think this is the thing. I've been teaching and talking and preaching about design for most of my career, as most senior designers do, because a lot of people don't get it. And I take a very sort of holistic view of design, that the world falls into two halves. Half of it has been designed by people, and the other half of it has been designed by nature. So anything that people have made has been designed. It's just a lot of it has been designed very badly. Yeah. And the difference is that good design, on the whole, you don't notice, because it does the job it's supposed to do. And it just happens in the background doing what it's supposed to do. Whereas bad design, you notice because you keep banging your shin off it, because it doesn't let you do something you want to do, because it excludes and it infuriates. So so you look at lots of things. Trainers, fantastic bit of inclusive design. Who doesn't wear trainers? Who's too old to wear trainers? Who's too young to wear trainers? Nobody. Even jeans. You look at all these things that just happen in the background, are wonderfully well designed, are age inclusive and definitely not exclusive to any age group. And yes, there's a million types, but that's, for me, great design. And our job is to look at all those things that people bang their shins off and fix them. That's
absolutely. Well, speaking of trainers too, I did notice an ad for a step into it, sort of. I don't know. Nike. It was one of the big brands. Was it Nike?
Yeah, and it's a really sexy shoe. Yeah, and it's colourful and it's gorgeous. I will be buying one of those.
I probably want a muted palette because I'm more earth tones, but I love the design. It's the kind of things I wear, the black ones that I wear. I slip them on because I don't want to always faff with the laces. And sometimes I just want to go to the shops and not wear socks. I mean, you just want to race up to the shop, get on the equivalent of an outdoor shoe that is really like a slipper.
Yeah, and they're marketing that as the travel trainer, because it's easy to take on and off on planes and transport. But of course, there's lots of people that struggle with laces and flexibility and getting down there and seeing the laces and tying them up. And of course, it's perfect for them. So it doesn't exclude. And that's the main thing. There's one thing about deliberately including, and then there's another thing about not excluding because you just haven't thought about it during the design process.
But what are some of the sectors then where there is a gulf between product and design? I know we can zoom to later life, and we've all seen those pleather recliners that are an eyesore no matter which way you go. And that's what you think when you think about designing for the, not exactly plus 55, plus 65, but the later life. I'm saying, 85. Those are the things that come to the fore, and the stairlifts and all these clunky, junky,
absolutely,
different shades of gravy. Always. They're never put in bright, vibrant colors. So talk us through some of the products that, were I to give you a big bundle of money, you'd say, oh, well, I'm gonna present this in a year when I've had time to get to my drafting board and, as a product designer.
I mean, I'm going to talk it from my perspective, but and then I think in terms of the institute, I think we should talk about the pathfinders. But something I did a big research project with a couple of years ago before I joined the institute, looking at ageless design, and we looked at 33 different sectors to see who was doing well about delight, sustainability, accessibility, ease of use, that type of thing. And as I said, we looked at 33 sectors, everything from mobile phones to newspapers to planes to you name it, white goods. We looked at it. No one was doing particularly well. I mean, everyone was sort of like focused around a central axis of tolerable, average. But the areas which were shocking to me, the areas where it was failing not only older people, but younger people, basically all of us, were housing, finance, transport, and healthcare. So these are the fundamental sort of like, we talk about it a lot about, Maslow's hierarchies of needs, some of the basic building blocks of what makes you feel safe in your life. And I know that's something that with the Pathfinder projects we're doing at the Design Age Institute, looking at transport, looking at finance. Colum, I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so where you find normally the worst examples of design and products and services that exclude are new industries, things that are new, because it's also exciting and people forget to be inclusive. So anything with the word technology on it, so fintech, health tech, age tech, crate tech, whatever it might be, they tend to run away with themselves and forget to include. So whether it's banking, whether it's NHS, accessing NHS apps, whatever it might be, because they haven't really been thought through to be totally inclusive, they tend to exclude people. I can't access it on my phone. I can't get it to work because the design is not good enough, because they're not simple enough. Now, we are getting in the public sector, they're getting very good. I think the .gov work that they're doing with government digital design service is excellent, but there's still a long way to go. But as George said, any sort of traveler transport, the people we talk to, as they age, they say, one of their greatest loves is traveling, and they just had to stop doing it. Not because France is less interesting, but because getting on and off airplanes has become impossible. That whole getting to the airport, checking in bags, lugging stuff about, getting on and off planes, getting taxis, it's just made it right. It's just too difficult. We're going to have to stop.
Gosh, I wouldn't have thought that, because you have those rolling cases and you've got all kinds of developments in transport, the scooter for life. You've got all these new products, but so what's missing in transport? Maybe I'm too young to recognize this.
It's joining it all up. So one, it is so complex now, because again, you're doing it online, you're checking in online, you're getting your seat online, you're doing everything online, which is a barrier. But also with things like the scooter for life doesn't exist. They make great pictures, but it isn't, as far as I'm aware, it isn't in production yet.
Oh my goodness. And that was from what, 2015?
Yeah. So, and that's one of the things we're looking at, is why do all these great ideas? There's no shortage of great designers. Yeah. There's no shortage of great design. What there is a market failure. So why are the products that you can buy horrible to look at and cheap and not very flexible? And the sort of things you want to buy are only in magazines that never really get under the shelves. So that's something we're looking at. That's one of the things the research team is looking at, is trying to understand why that market failure takes place. Is it just money? Is it just that this is twice the price of that and no manufacturer is going to take a risk, or nobody's going to buy it? None of us want to go out and buy ability aids. Right. We don't, they are dehumanizing. They signify frailty and aging. So nobody wants to walk around with a frame or a walking stick. So what's the answer? And we don't have the answer to that. That's part of the big research program that we're working on.
But that's part of what your remit is, isn't it? To connect the dots and turn the market for failure into a market for excellence.
Yeah. And the market is growing, by was it 2040? There'll be 30 million people over 60, in this country. That's a market. That's a proper market. Yeah. Over 50s already have 70% of the household wealth. And I think by 2040, over 55s will represent, 63 pence in every pound spent in the UK?
No, it's incredible.
Exactly right. You got it spot on.
So this is a huge market demographic that has money.
Absolutely. And the little factette that I always trot out in these podcasts is, in 2 years, by 2024, more than 1 in 4 of us that you pass on the pavement is going to be over 60.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the whole complexion, the fabric of society is changing, and we need to really, dig into this and catch up, because there's this massive disconnect on every level. But getting to the Design Age Institute now, you came out with a design directory that was announced at your recent event. How does that further those deliverable goals?
Well, first of all, we want to showcase great British design talent. And we want potential manufacturers, public sector organizations, the NHS, local authorities who design a lot of things that are around us in terms of services. We want them to be able to access the best design talent who understand the aging marketplace and the aging consumer. So it is fundamentally a showcase for that talent. It is free for designers to register. You don't have to pay to be on it. You do have to have some expertise in the area. It's not for everybody. It's for people who really get inclusive design and healthy aging. And also with our 16 Pathfinder projects that we'll be working with 16 organizations, we will recruit from our own directory. So it's a directory in every sense of the word, just very specialist on healthy aging.
So designers who have a track record of excellence in their respective field, and it goes across fashion, architecture, tech, you name it. They can make sure their name and their studio is on it.
Yeah. And therefore any client can go on it and just check out and go, great, here are 5 design companies that do great digital products. Let's get them on the roster or recruit from that, because we know they understand our audience. And that's the other thing, is the audience is changing. That the mend and make do generation, if they ever existed following the Second World War, are not the same as the generation who grew up in the 60s and 70s, who have been targeted and marketed at their entire lives, who, for those who have money, are quite happy to spend their way out of problems, whether it's health or anything else. They're quite happy to use their money to improve their lives. So we think the shift is not just about numbers, it's about money and the willingness to spend to solve problems. And that's one of the reasons why we set up this age thing that George runs. We need to hear the voice of these people. We need to understand what they want. We need to engage with them and communicate with them in a way that hasn't really happened before, that happens in a sort of respectful listening tone, not in this "here's what you should all be doing" kind of tone.
No, absolutely. And the age thing is one of your projects, because you are, Georgie, the community lead, the head of community outreach, let's call it. But I feel remiss that I haven't had you sketch out your background, because you've been very active in this space. And give us you in a nutshell when it comes to trying to change the narrative on aging.
I've been trying to change this world. And so my background started off as a psychologist, just stumbled into design, graphic design, branding, and had a very successful design company. And I think, actually my journey into age was a personal one. I mean, I was just about to turn 40. We just rebranded MTV, and I was thinking, how am I going to be doing this when I'm 50? I was so full of ageism and fear of the future. And then I was very, very lucky to meet a guy called Jonathan Colley, who is my co-founder of a social enterprise that we set up called The Age of No Retirement, which was very selfish, really, because it was about, I wanted to change the future for me. I wanted to sort of be able to change the narrative from decline. And the Age of No Retirement was very much driven by design thinking, but it was also all about storytelling and collaboration.
Well, you and Jonathan, you gave us the Common Room, which was a fantastic project.
Yeah, no, it is an amazing. Yeah, and actually, the great thing about the Common Room is about finding our purpose, and that changes throughout the life. At different stages, we get stuck. Doesn't matter how old you are. You might be 18, just left school, 21, just left college, or you might have just lost your job after COVID, or suddenly you're at 17 and thinking, actually, I want to go and do something again. So it was an intergenerational space where actually didn't say it's around ages and bringing ages together. It was about understanding there's a common desire to find something which is more powerful in ourselves. So I've always been very interested in storytelling, joining the dots, amazing people all over the country, all over the world doing amazing stuff, but no one bringing that together. So when I heard that the Design Age Institute was happening, I've always wanted to be part of it. I mean, it's just a powerhouse. I mean, it really is. I mean, the team are extraordinary. The legacy from the Helen Hamlin and the last 30 years is brilliant. And also for the first time, I have a little bit of a team and a little bit of money to actually to make things happen. So this age thing is sort of building on the learnings which I did it with the Age and the Retirement, the successes and the many mistakes I made. But what I absolutely knew is that there are lots of fantastic positive stories out there. And actually, by telling and sharing these positive stories of getting older, that has a powerful impact on our health and our longevity. But also, there are huge amounts of challenges which people don't really know about. So actually, this community is all about, we're going to share our positive stories about aging, but also our challenges, the things which are really making our lives more difficult. So as Colum said earlier, this is like a listening space. And we're going to be creating like a lived experience research part of it, so people can share what's really irritating them, but also the sort of like the make-dos that they are doing, which could inspire industry and designers to design better. So I think the ambition is to get as many people who are aging, so i.e. all of us, to join up to this age thing. And then when we get a critical mass and people are saying, we don't want big blue buttons and walkers, actually we want some really sexy shoes which actually make us feel safer when we're walking down the street, we can then say we've got 450,000 people here who are saying this is what they want. We can knock on the door of industry and a business and say there's a market there and we're going to help you design better for it. So it's part in inspiring, changing the narrative, but where there are issues, we want to listen to them and then collectively amplify the noise of that, and then we can go and design better with industry.
Okay. And you don't, I get that you don't want to just focus on happy people skipping along. You want to look at all the tapestry of aging, because as you said, there are opportunities, but there are those challenges. Absolutely. And we can't deny that as we, it's like my Swiss GP said to me, she said, oh, once you get over 50, the wheels start falling off the bus. And we can't deny that there are physiological changes. And then the beauty that I have found, you have that emotional resilience and pattern recognition, and you don't sweat the small stuff as much. So you end up, as David Bowie put it, being the person that you were always meant to be. So we can celebrate it all the while breaking down the silos that segregate us in society. And design is a great connector.
Absolutely.
We talk about this a lot. This is one of the things that we try to communicate, that yes, as you age, you become more frail on a variety of different vectors, physical, mental, social, economic, whatever. You do become less resilient as you age. But it's not a problem until you cross a kind of line of transition where you go from ability to disability. Once you're north of that line, or we can give you products to keep you north of that line, then we don't really want to talk about disability. We recognize it and we know we have to design for it. But the truth is that only just over 25% of people over 65 have a severe problem doing a household activity. So what it means is that 75% of the population over 65 have no disability or frailty that affects their normal life. And so why do we keep talking about illness, burden, and disability,
yes,
and not talk about interests, wisdom, and joy? And
there's a lot of vitality, and we really need to get back to not putting people in these buckets and othering them. But there will be those who, when they look at your email, they might think, oh, well, there we go on about age again. And we're almost othering that group by even stressing it. I mean, do you worry about that sort of critique?
We do, because we do have a very specific remit from our grant, which is looking at keeping people living independently longer and in work for those who want and need it longer. So it is about longevity and the longevity economy. But we believe we do that through focusing on what people are interested in and what brings them joy in their life. So using the carrot by saying, listen, if you want to be happier, healthier for longer, here are things you should embrace. Not, if you don't, here's the stick of the horrible walker and an oxygen mask you'll be wearing. Because it is more motivating to think, I have, these are the wonderful, healthy, happier years I've got left to enjoy. And that's deeply personal. We've thrown statistics at you during this podcast. 65% of this and of over 65s, of over 55s, of over 50s. But the truth is, when you're doing research, you have to draw a line somewhere. Yeah. But the reality is, those numbers are meaningless. I'm 54. I know people are 65, 75 who can run further, faster, longer than I can. So those numbers are just numbers. It's deeply personal. And it can be right down to when you're 30, 40, 50. It's just getting older. At whatever point you want to draw the line yourself, that you want to engage in these debates.
Yeah, I think no one's buying these differences that are social constructs that are false. People just want to muck along. 22-year-olds. I once had someone deliver food to the door, and she was 19, and she was saying, "Oh, so what are you doing?" Because I had a ring light on, and I said, "Oh, I've just finished doing a podcast," and I told her all about the big middle. She said, "Oh my God, I'd love to be on your podcast. Oh my God, I need to speak to older people. I have no role models." So, all the way across the age spectrum, we need to unite.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think it's all about sort of actually seeing what we have in common, and I think that's what we do, and that's how we sort of like get industry to get really quite excited about it. So, in terms of the Design Age Institute, we are, as Colum has said, we're thinking about people, just like you. I hate using these sort of chronological, labels, like 50 plus. But actually, that's in helping in terms of the design. How it's marketed, that's a very, very different kind of perspective. So we're designing to help people live healthier and happier and more joyfully longer in terms of the actual development of it. But in terms of how it's marketed, some of them will be marketed at age, but some of them will be age agnostic, I imagine, won't they?
Yeah. So when we talk about looking at designing a bank, we think about, it's one of the projects we're thinking about rather than doing at this minute in time, but what would be the world's most inclusive bank? Is our question, not what would be a good bank for old people. So what would be the most inclusive bank that we could come up with? What would it look like? What would the products and services look like? How would you communicate with it? What access points would there be? What insurances and reassurances would there be to be totally inclusive and safe for people to use? And then whoever signs up, signs up. We're not going to, you wouldn't advertise it and say, this is the same way that you wouldn't say this is a shoe for old people. Nobody is going to sell a bank for old people because nobody would buy it. I wouldn't buy it. Yeah. I used to work for a dementia care company, and we used to design homes for people with dementia. And we used to have a mantra that was, we need to design these so that they're good enough that I'd put my own mother in them. Until we worked out, people put their mothers in all sorts of horrible places. And we changed the mantra that if this isn't good enough for me, stop what you're doing. If I wouldn't live there today, if it isn't good enough for me, then you're designing it wrong.
And what are you seeing in the housing sector? Because that's a priority sector that we need to see a lot of change in. What are you seeing that excites you, that's innovative?
Oh, very little that excites me. What I see is a race to the bottom. In a lot of that housing, and it worries me actually that the space standards, the quality standards are all slipping and getting lower and lower. And yes, of course, there are upmarket homes you can buy, but the basic sort of homes that are being built, I believe, are not fit for purpose. And it's definitely an area that we're looking to work in and try to understand how you can change the dynamic. And it's not about good design. There's plenty of good designers and architects know how to design well and better homes. It's about the system that gets these homes built. That's what needs to change.
And the access across the board. We can't be having people marginalized in ghettos outside of central areas of the city. We need people to be bumping along together of all ages. We need to make it multi-generational.
Absolutely. And I think there are some interesting things. Where I see some interesting things happening in the housing is around intergenerational homes, intergenerational communities. And there's a wonderful home that was designed by PRP, the architects, and there was in the Olympic Village. And the way they got away with doing it was because it was a competition on the Olympic site, so they didn't have to reach planning permission. So they were allowed to be a little bit brave. But what they did is where the normal corner house is on a terrace house, they created two houses, which one a 3-story and one with a little courtyard and one with a 2-story. And these houses were linked. But the idea was like a lifetime house. So you could move into it and you could have your kids there. You could have the nanny in the smaller house. Then the kids could go to university or something like that. Then they could live there. Or you could have your older parent living there. Or as you get older, your kids can have the house. So there are some really, really interesting, again, it goes back to what Colum was saying, some amazing ideas. But the thing which is really stymieing innovation and crippling sort of good design is a shortfall in terms of the systems, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not to say there's nothing good out there. There's just not enough of it, and it's not happening at enough pace to keep up with society. The thing that excites me most in that kind of area are cruise ships. Strangely,
I did not expect you to say that.
Cruise ships, that's my idea of a nightmare on water.
Well, it is, but you look at the demographic of people who go on cruises. You go away for 2 weeks on a cruise ship and everything is provided for you. And there's healthcare on board, there's staff on board, the people that come get you and take you places on board, everything is there for you. It's like a care home, only it's cheaper, unbelievably. So, a lot of people are going on this because it's cheaper than being in a care home just to be on a cruise ship.
Oh, my word. You're not really selling it to me, but I just...
No, I know. I get that. But what I'm thinking of, if that private sector, hugely expensive model works, surely we can design a house that provides some of those benefits for a fraction of the cost. So that's, so it's that systemic aspect of the market. Again, it's looking at the market. Why is all accommodation feeling a bit like student accommodation? Yeah. Rather than designed for its particular needs.
Yeah, it's MDF to the max everywhere, and sheets of plywood, which can be quite nice in an architecturally well-designed space. But I mean, the thing is, in the UK, and this has been my home base for a number of years as I scooted around Europe, there's a lot of rhetoric, there's a lot of people in their camps doing their thing, but hopefully you're going to bring some cohesion to all of this activity.
That's the idea. So part of the remit working with people like the International Longevity Centre and Oxford University is to look at policy, look at the policy landscape in this country and other countries, and understand, how have we got to this point in time and what must change in policy to have a radical change so that it sort of isn't just a straightforward, market-led race to the bottom.
Is there a physical space for the Design Age Institute, somewhere where you can invite people, have focus groups? I mean, once we fully slip the shackles of this lockdown period.
Oh, absolutely, and I think this is very much coming from this age thing. Just how can we really connect with people, with real people, and we want to create this age thing is like a holding space in a way, which will be part digital. Increasingly will be more sort of like, will be events, focus groups, storytelling sessions, listening posts. I mean, it really, really is. It's about actually how can we all, because it really is. This is not about them. This is about us and our futures. How can we all take responsibility for designing a better world selfishly for our future selves? So I mean, it really is about we want to, and also we've got things like the Royal College of Art building, which will be open soon.
So in terms of a physical space, it's a kind of a race against the clock whether the pandemic ends first or our building is open first, but we're having a building. The 6 or 7 research centres at the Royal College, there's a building being built in Battersea for us, and us and the Helen Hamlin Centre will have our own floor. So there will be a physical space where, should we all be allowed to come and sit in an office again sometime soon, by beginning of next year, we'll have a brand new building to all work out of in Battersea.
Wouldn't it be fantastic? And, across the board, getting young people in 20s, 30s, all the way to 80s involved in, troubleshooting some of the issues that are out there and just brainstorming ideas.
Absolutely.
And that's the wonderful thing about being part of a university. Clearly, the Royal College of Art is a 180-year history in this area. They have been voted the #1 art and design college in the world for, I think, 6 years running. Having that quality of creative brains to sit and be inspired by is wonderful. But then working with the Voice Network at Newcastle, at NICA, which is a great collection of older people who have been in this space and, really active community, wanting to get engaged, is bringing those things together is, I think, for me anyway, and possibly George, just the most exciting thing on earth.
Yeah.
Oh wow! It all sounds really exciting to me. So let's just go close in terms of a timeline. What are you expecting to have achieved where you can go, yes, this is happening in a month?
Oh, in a month? Goodness. Nothing. I'll have taken the holiday.
I love the honesty. I love the authenticity with that.
Yeah. So we have, there's a timeline of things being delivered, both in terms of, executive education, research reports, working with clients, influencing people. But the main thing is, for me, is signing more and more people up to work with us who are going to bring about actual physical change, products on shelves. services to market. And of course, the lead in for those things, if you want to affect the design of a house, it doesn't happen in a month. It'll take a year or 2 years before that design and planning process results in a finished building that people can go in and say, this has made a difference.
Okay, so it's connecting the people and the designers and filling the gaps. So the design director, you'll be building that out. And Georgie, with this age thing, what do you see happening in the next month?
I mean, seriously, in a month, I want to have 1,000 people signed up. Okay, I mean, and there's no reason why I can't. And then after that, we want to create advocates who are getting something from this aging, the positive stories, and an opportunity to feed in. So, I mean, my ambition, shall I say it out loud? Why not? I mean, I'd like to have sort of by the end of next year, I'd like to have 500,000 people signed up to this age thing, who are feeding into to what we're doing. I've said it out now loud, so I've got to deliver it.
You've got to be ambitious. You've got to be ambitious.
And absolutely, and there is no reason why not, because we know that people are craving sort of like stories which are not just the extremes of the 90-year-old doing a marathon, which are incredibly inspiring, but there are amazing people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s who are doing transitions in their life, or doing new things, are bucking the trend of this medicalized, negative narrative. And I want to share those stories to realize that you don't have to be spectacular to age well. We can all age well. And then
there's such a global movement of this now.
Oh, it's absolutely.
I mean, we're all being more sensitized to it, and there's so many activists out there all pushing at the same door, which is half open now. And it wasn't 10 years ago. It was firmly shut. And everybody just cringed in fear of getting old and being over there in the corner, being left to die. It was almost like you got the sense, if you look at the history of aging, recent history, that the sooner the better, really. We'll stick you out in a home and we'll forget about you. And
please don't be inconvenient to us, I think was kind of the message,
Yeah, completely.
I think that you asked the question, what do we want to achieve? And I was always taught as a designer, and I believe it, and I kind of preach it to my team who do look at me kind of strangely, but your job is to change the world. Simply put, if you're not planning to change the world, you shouldn't be in the design industry. Now, you may just be changing it one hairdryer at a time. That's how the world changes, one step at a time.
And we need new experiences and new products, and constantly to be evolving. And, it's touch, feel, look. Design is a visual feast as much as a functional feast for everyone. And before we go, what was that product you designed 30 years ago?
Well, it was called the Limpet, and it was a novel new way of gripping things in a kitchen to give you a third hand. So fundamentally, if you had limited dexterity, mobility, strength, you could put your can, tin, vegetables, potato in this limpet, and it would grip it so you could peel it, work, and it open the lid. So that's what I designed.
What did it look like?
A limpet.
No,
but seriously, was it like one of those plastic things that you could poach an egg in that are, on the market now?
Well, I said it was a way to grip. So it was based on the human body. It was a rubber cylinder that when you twist it, it contracts in the middle. And of course, the more it twists, the firmer the grip. So depending on what you put in it, if it was a packet of crisps, it would grip it lightly. If it was a tin, that would grip it strongly, and it just fixed to your work surface. So you could just drop a tin in it, press grip, and then you could work on it.
Great for multitasking. I want one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it was a classic young person designing for an audience they didn't fully understand. And, as a sort of 5-year-old designer, you didn't fully understand the marketplace, and it was a competition. It wasn't something that you'd had months to work at. So I'm getting my excuses in early. But but it was my first introduction.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, any more for any more? Would you like to add anything at all, Georgie? Something that you wanted to say earlier, and I probably moved it along in a different direction.
No, I just want all of your amazing listeners, please just go to this age thing and join up.
So what's the website address, George?
Thisagething.co.
Okay, and the Design Age Institute, the website is
designage.org.
Okay, fantastic. Georgie Lee, Head of Community, and Colum Lowe, Director of the UK's Design Age Institute. Wonderful by any measure, very exciting. Thank you so much for telling us all about your plans and your project and everything that's now put into play.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan, a joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you both for doing so much to bridge the design gaps across the life course. So that's it for The Big Middle for now. Until next time, go well.